Hi, Founder fans. Jason here. Today's founder is Ezra Lee, the world's first submarine pilot. So come with me under the sea with Ezra Lee. I'm sorry, I had to. Anyway, Ezra Lee is today's founder, and yesterday we discussed David Bushnell, who created the Turtle, the world's first submarine. And we're following that up with Ezra Lee, the man chosen to pilot that vehicle. Now, there's not a lot known about Ezra Lee's early life, though he does marry into the same family as Samuel Holden Parsons, who becomes his brother-in-law. Now, Samuel Holden Parsons is a little bit better known in Revolutionary War circles because he was pretty quickly appointed a brigadier general in the Continental Army. Now, once Mr. Bushnell invents his submarine, originally a different Ezra, the inventor's brother, Ezra Bushnell, was supposed to pilot the submarine, but he fell ill. So they needed to find a replacement. And what they did is very similar to what we saw when NASA first had astronauts going into space. Much like the astronauts who got a bunch of people to come and train as astronauts, but only the best of the best actually got in the spaceship. David Bushnell got a team of 3 people to train in how to operate the vehicle, and Ezra Lee stood above the other 3 after a month of training in being able to operate this very difficult contraption. As we discussed yesterday, Ezra would have to get in this boat. He would have to pedal with his feet and operate the rest with his hands. A very strenuous operation, especially in the waters where they were, off the tip of Manhattan, where the Hudson River met the East River, and they kind of had to time it for when the tides were coming in from the Atlantic Ocean, so it wasn't giving him too much pushback. Additionally, while Lee operated this vehicle, he had snorkels at the top, but when he went underwater, he had to close the snorkels off to make sure he didn't, drown. So when the snorkels were closed, he only had about half an hour's worth of oxygen to actually carry out his mission. So when the time came to attack the British ship in the New York harbor, Ezra Lee, they bring the Turtle to New York, they pull it out into the water, they plop Lee in the top, do it over here, plop him in the top, close it up, and send him on his way. Lee has to pedal for about 2 hours to get close enough to the ship where he can close off the top, submerge by taking on water, go under the British ship, and attempt to strap a bomb to it. Now, the bomb was also invented by David Bushnell. Actually, the bomb was invented first, and they invented the submarine as a way to attach the bomb to the British ship. Now, the bomb was on the outside of the Turtle. Again, I should do it on this side. Outside of the Turtle with a screw. And Lee, from within the Turtle, operated a screw that was supposed to screw into the bottom of the British ship with the bomb that was set to a timer, and when they released the bomb, the timer would begin so Lee could get away, resurface, get some air, and get out of there before the explosion. Now, unfortunately, this first experiment in submarine warfare goes a little bit wrong. There is a great deal of debate among historians as to why the operation does not go according to plan. For a long time, it was assumed that there was a metal hull at the bottom of the boat which prevented this from happening, but most scholars seem to agree at this point that you could get the screw through that metal hull. He probably hit a metal screw or bolt in the bottom of the ship just by chance, hit a little piece of really thick metal that stopped him. But other historians also argue that because, as I said, they were at the confluence of 2 rivers and an ocean, and even if they timed it right during the day, the tides would send them back and forth like this, and make it very difficult to not only screw, again, he's hand screwing into the bottom of a ship while being sent back and forth. And I'll remind you that between his vessel and the ship that he's trying to screw into is a bomb that really was brand new. This is the first time an underwater explosive had been invented, and the first time it was being used in warfare. So, extraordinarily dangerous. Additionally, as I said, he's running out of air this whole time. So this is a really dangerous scenario, and unfortunately, he does run out of time and has to resurface. He has to resurface fairly quickly, and when he does, he's within view of the British ship that he was trying to explode. When he surfaces, some of the sailors on the ship, and I should say, the ship he's attacking is the HMS Eagle, General Howe's flagship, mind you. So, arguably the most important ship in the British Navy in North America at the time. He resurfaces, the men on the boat are like, what is that thing? There's never been a submarine, so they've never seen one before. But they think something's a little fishy, so they get on their boats, forgive me, the boats that go down the side of a ship, their life rafts, if you will. They jump on their rowboats, go down, and start chasing this weird thing. Now, so you have boats full of men who are well rested, working as a team to paddle, as opposed to this guy who's Ezra Lee, who's half submerged, has been pedaling for 2.5 hours at this point, had just reduced himself of oxygen, and he's trying to make a getaway from these gentlemen who are on the hunt. So, he decides to do something extreme. He turns on the timer and releases his bomb into the ocean. I have a quote here from Lee summarizing the events of that day, and I'm going to read it in full for you because it is extraordinary act of bravery he does. Quote, "I eyed them, and when they got within 50 or 60 yards of me, I let loose the magazine in hopes that if they should take me, they would likewise pick up the magazine, and then we should all be blown up together." He assumes that he's going to get caught, so he releases the bomb, hoping that when they catch him, they'll also pick up the bomb, and he, with them, will all blow up. Fortunately for Ezra Lee, seeing this second contraption floating off of that first contraption, these British soldiers who were already curious and a little suspicious of what was happening, these seamen, I should say, these British Navy men, they stop. And they say, okay, this is a little much for us, and they back off, which is super fortunate because it permits Ezra Lee to finish making his escape. It's fortunate for them also because they don't pick up the bomb, which shortly thereafter explodes, shooting water 100 feet in the sky. So they return to their ship, pretty satisfied that they're still alive, while Ezra Lee returns to shore, satisfied that he is still alive. And although this mission was unsuccessful, it was the first successful journey on a submarine. Lee spends over 3 hours in the water, pedaling the entire time against currents in all different directions. It's really an extraordinary act of heroism. Now, Lee actually also pilots the Turtle a second time in a what now is Upper New York City. But again, nothing comes of it the second time either. It's a similar situation, although this time he doesn't seem to have been noticed by anyone. Unfortunately for the Turtle, it is sunk. It's on another ship. It's usually held on a ship, and it does a few months later get sunk by the British because they sink this other ship, don't even realize it's on it. There has been discussion that Bushnell, David Bushnell, the inventor of the Turtle, he wrote in a letter years later to Thomas Jefferson that he had recovered the ship. But as we mentioned yesterday, and again, I'll put a link to that video in the description. As we mentioned yesterday, his later years are very, how do you say, shady. We don't really know a lot of what's going on or what to believe. So fortunately, we don't have the ship itself. As for Ezra Lee, he returns to war, to active duty. He spends the rest of the war involved in the military. He works in the Connecticut line of the Continental Army. He makes his way up from the lowest level officer you can be to he ends up being a first lieutenant at one point. He's also, because of his bravery in this act, he is noted and commended by General Washington himself for the use of the submarine and his attempt to do this. It's a failed attempt, but it's brilliant. And Washington certainly respects that. Lee is actually then brought in to do, from time to time, he acts with Washington's intelligence agency and acts as a spy, gathering information on several occasions. And I do want to say, George Washington again commends him later on for the clarity of his correspondence. Unfortunately, it seems like many of Washington's officers who were writing letters all the time didn't necessarily take the time for the best penmanship or to be as specific as the sometimes uptight general might be. Lee, on the other hand, seems to give Washington literally every detail that he wants, crystal clear. He returns to the Continental Army for the remainder of the war before returning to his home in Connecticut. And he passes away several decades later. And when he does, there's a really fairly humorous obituary written in the local paper that claims Ezra Lee to be the only person who fought against the British on land, on sea, and under the ocean. So that is Ezra Lee, the first pilot of a submarine. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like. If you're new here, you stumbled on the video, definitely subscribe. I put out videos about the American Revolution, specifically focusing on lesser-known founders like this, 7 days a week. So come on, join the party. I'm happy to have you here. My name is Jason, and I'll be back with another founder for you tomorrow.